Om Namah Shivaya Ma. Happy to have you here. I have a few questions regarding the Anadi Bala Gurukulam, and I thought this would be a nice opportunity to clear a few questions that parents have asked as well. So, my first question would be how Anadi's Bala Gurukulam is any different from the modern European school, and will the child miss out anything from the current times?
So, thank you for asking this question that is there on the minds of all the parents who have shown interest in Anadi Bala Gurukulam, which is Anadi Foundation's upcoming Indic preschool. So, normally, we see around even from the time that I have been in the preschool, like all of us have gone to a preschool, then went to a mainstream school. We've had a certain educational process as part of the preschool. But then, after seeing a lot of students, how they have grown up, taken up higher education, I've been a professor in a university for 10 years before. And when I look at the students, how they take up their jobs, the kind of stress they go through in life, then I started reflecting there's probably something that could have been done at the level of the school education to teach them how to handle the stresses and strains of life. So when we say school education, it not just includes the mainstream like primary education, higher education and all that, higher secondary, but it starts right from the preschool education, because that is a very, very fundamental age where a lot of impressions can be created. So like they often say, a child's mind is like wet cement. So whatever you keep on it, the impression will last for a very long time. So, what we introduce to the child at that age will actually define, even if you look at the brain functions, the traits that they develop, the personality that they develop over a period of time, all depend on the fundamental education or the environment that we provide at that age. Of course, it starts much earlier than that as well. Like people are now talking about prenatal education and all that. But the funny part about the current preschool education that is happening is that a lot of the concepts that are offered are not contextual in nature. The children are introduced to the environment, the context, the objects in reality, which are probably borrowed from some other countries, right? But they don't study about our own culture and our own roots. We often keep joking at Anadi Foundation that the London Bridge is still falling. It was falling from I started preschool to even now, it's still falling. And many of the nursery rhymes, if you look at their meanings, some things can be very strange, right? And that is what the children are learning in the preschool, whereas the potential of a child is much higher. If you look at the Indian tradition, we have had Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada, who attained to jnana at a very young age, a Swami Vivekananda. Or we have this Sant, the Sant tradition in Maharashtra. Very young sants have come, including girls and boys, right? So there are so many more role models in our Bharatiya tradition where at a very young age, a lot of excellent brilliance can actually be shown. No need to learn even just only this, no need to stop with just the basics. So that way, this Anadi preschool, Indic preschool, which is Anadi Bala Gurukulam, will be completely based on Indic content and Indic pedagogy, where the first reinforcement is that everything is inherently divine. Nature is divine. Your fellow human beings are divine. You yourself are divine that way. So, when that inherent divinity is invoked, then the way they look at things around that, they won't look at nature as resources anymore. Right? That will be a very huge difference in the way they grow up. And of course, Sanskritam will be a very important part of the content. And now, a lot of neuroscientists are saying that learning Sanskritam actually changes a lot of things in your brain in terms of the gray matter, the white matter, the hippocampal region, and all that. So, when children learn Sanskrit verses, Sanskrit songs, and poems at a very young age, it builds very important verbal skills. And also Matrubhasha. Say, for example, children in, say, Telangana will learn Telugu, Tamil Nadu will learn Tamil. Focusing on the Matrubhasha is also crucial because the spread of the alphabet is very deep in the Matrubhasha. And everything is so logically structured, right? There's so many things that I can talk about as how the Indic preschool will be different. But the fundamental difference is that it will be contextualized locally, yet making the person prepare or understand the larger global context as well. So the child will not miss out on anything that other children in other preschools study, but they will definitely be imbibing a very different kind of a knowledge system through this preschool.
So, two things that I've taken away from what you have said. One is they're like white cement and they, take the imprint since a very young age. And the second thing is, my question is there a prerequisite for a child to come into this Indic preschool? Because you were saying that it's way before the child coming into this world. There's a pre-development also that is important. So we nowadays hear Garbha Samskara that is happening. So is it like a prerequisite for the child, or do they need to learn chanting before they come to the school?
So as such, there is no prerequisite, we have kept with respect to the child's qualities or qualifications or eligibility that way. But this is more in terms of how well the family aligns with the Bharatiya, knowledge systems. How well are they convinced, or are they willing to be convinced over a period of time? They may start somewhere, but over a period of time, are they also willing to learn and participate in this whole process? That is the most important thing. How the family supports such a learning of the child is what we have kept as the eligibility criteria. Or there will be parents who say that, I don't know much, but I'm willing to explore this for my child. Even those people are welcome.
Okay. So parents also don't need a prerequisite?
No, parents don't need. And you don't need to know chanting beforehand.
Okay.
Okay.
So how will the Indic knowledge system be relevant in the modern times?
So this is a question that many people ask, So when people talk about Indian knowledge systems, there's a lot of movement throughout the country that is happening. There is also a division of Indian knowledge systems started by the Ministry of Education recently. We also work closely with the division on curriculum, research, and all that. So even then, the society, when you look at it, when we talk about Indic knowledge systems, people think we are taking the young people into the stone ages, right? But look at the world around us. There is definitely an ecological crisis that is going on. The amount of pollution that we have around in the environment is very significant. Not just pollution, they talk about planetary boundaries, and most of the boundaries, we have violated them. And healthcare, if you see, again, there's a crisis going on. The COVID was a very stark reminder that immunity is something that the entire population needs to focus on. And even economics for that matter. So many countries, if you see, they're crumbling. Recession is going on in many countries. Thankfully, in Bharat at least, we have shown good progress even during the COVID times. So given these crises, many countries have started now looking at solutions which are rooted in their own traditions, their own indigenous solutions. So that way, it is time that Bharatiyas or the people who live in Bharat, they wake up to the solutions that are available in our tradition and culture to solve some of these problems. The number of people who took to yoga, to pranayama, to asana, pranayama, to Ayurveda and Siddha during the COVID times has been very significant. And many people have had remarkable, transformation after adopting these systems. And even leadership, many people are talking about, say, servant leadership and all those new models of leadership, which is not just focus on progress, in the sense economic progress alone, but more of an inclusive development process. So that way we see that there is more and more transformation in the society with respect to some of, towards the acceptance of some of these knowledge systems. So that way, when a child is, molded right from young stage to develop a taste in these knowledge systems, there is also a good chance that they may take it up as a higher education opportunity or a job opportunity in the future, where they work with cutting edge modern science, as well as they also work with these ancient sciences, where there is a fusion of these two knowledge systems. Because now, if you see in all the higher education institutions, there is an IKS center. So this IKS center is going to look for people who are educated in IKS. In the 90s, when computers came, there were a few brave people who learned computer science. They used to be called brave, right? Now it's like, if you don't use technology, you'll be called brave.
Yeah.
Like, how can you stay away from technology?
True.
Right? So those few people who took up technology in those days are the millionaires right now. So similarly, at least it's my own, you can call it wishful thinking or whatever, but my own prediction is that people who take up IKS in this phase probably are going to be the millionaires and billionaires of the future, where even right from, say, the atomic level to space technology, there is a possibility to look seriously at IKS. So that way, the child, when it is exposed at a very young age to IKS, of course, there will be a personal transformation, physically, emotionally, cognitively. But as the child grows, becomes a student, becomes a youth, they'll be of immense contribution to the society. That's what we foresee at Anadi Foundation.
Will the child be compatible if they join, like if they study in an Indic preschool? Can they join in a first grade school in another European school?
So if you see the skills that we look for in a preschool child, it is in terms of spoken skills. They should speak the language well in terms of English or Matrubhasha, and simple written skills. And how well they also, handle relationships in terms of their parents, their friends. How do they interact well with their friends? And, in terms of the physical capabilities as well, running, jumping, grasping things, and also an active participation throughout the day. So these are the skills that we look for in a preschool child. So these skills, when brought through an Indic pedagogy, can very well be brought out, actually, because we focus on what we call the Panchakosha development, or Panchakoshiya Vikas, we talk about it. So there'll be something for the physical dimension, emotional dimension, cognitive dimension, the happiness and aesthetic dimension, and also the energy dimension as well. What we call Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. So that way, this holistic development of the child is ensured. And they'll be very well prepared to take on, even if they go to a different school in grade 1, they'll have all the skills and even much more than what the mainstream preschool education offers.
I would like to go deep into the curriculum and ask if the child would learn like communication skills, let it be English or mathematics for that matter, and Sanskrit. Will they learn in the Indic preschool?
Yeah, English is very much part of the preschool, because that is something that is useful for them when they gel into the regular system. But a good focus will also be to do with, since we are starting the first one in Telangana, a good focus will be in Telugu. That is, we are starting it in Jubilee Hills, right? So good focus will be in Telugu as well as Sanskritam. Because when things are told in Matrubhasha, then there is a very, very significant cognitive development that happens, right? So that way, the child will develop very good verbal skills, good mental model of objects. That's very important. The child learns by developing correct mental models. So this can be reinforced when it is taught in, say, Telugu or in Sanskritam or any other Matrubhasha or Hindi for that matter. So here at the Gurukulam, at the Bala Gurukulam, the Indic preschool will be focusing on 3 languages: English, Matrubhasha, which is Telugu, and Sanskritam.
So what is the use of learning Sanskrit while there are a lot of translated English slokas that are available?
Yes. So as I already told you, Sanskritam has a very important effect on the brain. So Sanskritam, there is Professor James Hartzell. He actually made a study on the Shukla Yajurveda Panditas, and he observed that there are very significant changes in the gray matter, the white matter, the hippocampal region of the brains of those people involved in chanting. And Sanskritam is also an alpha syllabic language, which makes it very, what you can say, less number of letters are required to represent a word that way. And very phonetically consistent, which sometimes all of us who learn English face a lot of challenges during childhood, right? So those phonetic inconsistencies can be taken care of when the child is introduced to Sanskritam, because there is only one way to write something, there is only one way to read something. So that way it's a very easy pathway to pick up. The child also develop a lot of verbal intelligence and confidence when they learn Sanskritam, and it's useful for the future as well, because more and more Indic knowledge systems, textual, decoding is happening, where the child can also participate when they are a young student or a researcher in the future.
How memorizing a shloka beneficial for the child? And is mugging like will it make him incompatible?
So now many people are against rote learning, right? They say that the education system is bad because it's completely based on rote learning. So one critical difference we need to understand that memorization or chanting is very different from rote learning. When we say rote learning, it is basically you're taking an English textbook and you are memorizing that entire chapter, the story, say for example, of the Crow and Jackal, or something like that. You're just by hearting the entire story and just going and writing there. And after that, you just forget, right? But this chanting process, it's and that too, since Sanskritam verses, most of it are also set to a metrical tone, which is called a chandas. It actually creates very deep impressions in the mind of the child. So whatever the child learns, even from the age of 2.5, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or 8 years, 15 years, the child remembers it for a very, very long period of time. So that way, a lot of linked knowledge is formed, a lot of deeper impression is formed. It does not just stay in the short-term memory, but it actually goes into the long-term memory because of repeated practice. So memorization of Sanskritam verses is vastly different from memorizing an English chapter or a physics chapter or a mathematics chapter, because the Sanskrit verses are inherently designed to impact certain regions of the brain. Of course, we don't have neuroscience studies mentioned in those times, but something that the rishis probably understood very intuitively and designed the entire knowledge system accordingly.
So, will the child's creativity decrease because of memorizing Sanskrit?
In fact, what we have seen at the residential Gurukulam that we have in Palani is that it's called Anadi Dharma Gurukulam. The creativity only increases because eventually children start composing their own verses once they get introduced to Sanskritam and the meters. So even if they have to describe a cow over there, they would probably quickly compose two, verses in Anushtup Chandas or Trishtup Chandas or whatever metrical tone that they are comfortable with. So at least I have personally seen the creativity increase multifold by introducing these Sanskritam verses. And they also start using it in their daily life by recollecting. For example, they go through a situation, they would probably recollect it, whatever was mentioned in the verse, and then they would chant the verse in order to bring out that situation or illustrate a particular scenario. So all this happens when they actually memorize this. Whereas when you learn it as a story or whatever, you don't remember. You remember here and there, but you largely tend to forget things. So, yeah.
So if we see English as a language and Sanskritam as a language, people might contradict saying that English is often spoken and Sanskritam is not. So what is your opinion about it? In near future, how would Sanskrit be?
No, a lot of efforts are happening throughout the country. One is promotion of Sanskritam, but also promotion of Matrabhasha. Now, a lot of higher education is also coming up in Matrabhasha. And English is useful because you can transact it globally. But doesn't mean that, for example, I lived in Italy for a few years. And I lived in a very small town where most of the people didn't speak English. And even the education was in Italian, like higher education was in Italian, masters was in Italian. So they will learn all computer science subjects and everything in Italian. But when it comes to research papers, what they would do is that they would publish in English, right? So only to that extent they would use English. But to survive within their country, they actually manage comfortably with their own mother tongue or matrubhasha. So a situation is coming where people will just be very comfortable knowing English for transacting alone, and but also Sanskritam and Matrubhasha using it in the local context. And in fact, more and more people are also looking for Sanskrit experts and Matrubhasha experts, because so many vast knowledge systems are written in these languages. So if the if the world over people have to decode it, they will need the support of these people. So that way it's useful. But of course, in the preschool and Anadi Gurukulams, all of the Gurukulams, English is a good part of the medium of sometimes medium of instruction, sometimes as a subject they learn. There are also leadership lessons where they have to communicate in English, they have to communicate in Sanskritam, communicate in Matrubhasha, and also write their own essays. So that way, good English skills are also brought out. And all of the people involved are exposed to global education. So that way, English will be a good part. But what impact Sanskrit and Matrubhasha has on the system is very, very different. So that should not be left out at any cost. Yeah.
We at Anadi think about child's development at a very young age, and parents also think about their future at a very young age. So a lot of parents had a question about, will they get a job after studying Indic knowledge?
Correct. So the way we have to look at it is, whoever is successful today, is success defined only by the content of their education or by the qualities that they have developed in their lives? So it's a combination of both. So if we say that I studied BSc Mathematics and only because of that I'm a good, successful person, that would be incorrect. I did my BSc Mathematics. No, I didn't do. I'm just giving an example. I did my education, plus I developed these qualities, leadership qualities or team building qualities or whatever, and because of which I am successful. I knew how to save money or something like that, right? So it's a combination of values plus the content of the educational process. So the value systems are very strongly built in the Anadi Dharma Gurukulam and Anadi Swadharma Gurukulam, and of course the Indic preschool that is upcoming. The value component will be a very strong component which will ensure that the child is able to build a successful career. And the cognitive qualities will also be so robust, like they would be able to pick up any knowledge system in the future, because memory will be good, attention and focus will be high, decision making capability will be very good, language speaking capability will be very good. So it's just a question of time. Whatever knowledge system they desire, they'll be able to quickly pick it up, convert it into a skill and make success in the world. So that way, when we say Indic knowledge systems, it's not just about the content. It is also about the very, very fundamental values that they build across the koshas. Physically fit, they'll be physically fit, very, very fit compared to many other children of their age group. Emotionally fit, cognitively robust. So all these qualities will define their success in the future.
We have some generic questions that people have been asking about kids in general. So the first thing that they ask is, what is the benefit of Ayurveda for the child?
So here at Anadi, we believe in an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach to wellness and all that. So it's never a case where we say that one system of medicine is better than the other system of medicine, right? But with Ayurveda, what happens with the knowledge of Ayurveda, at least, okay, one is of course going to an Ayurveda Vaidya and getting your system treated. The other one is actually having some knowledge of Ayurveda. I was a biology student in 11th and 12th, right? So, in detail, we studied about genetics, we studied about the liver, kidney, heart, and all that. But as far as I remember, there was no input on how do you actually lead a healthy life. So you will know how to dissect a cockroach probably. You will be able to see all those parts and everything. But you will not know what is happening inside of your own system, how to keep things healthy, how to be active and robust. But when a child is introduced to Ayurveda as a knowledge system, they become very, very self aware of their own health. So if a child who's not introduced to Ayurveda probably falls sick, the first thing would be to go to a doctor and pop a pill. The moment you introduce Ayurveda to a child in a very what you can say, conflicting manner, the child starts to self reflect on what went wrong which caused this sickness. Is it because of the water? Is it because of the environment? Is it because of the food that they eat? Or is it because of some kind of activity that they were involved with? So, that level of self awareness that Ayurveda builds, the level of confidence that it builds in their own health is very significant compared to a child which has no idea about frameworks from Ayurveda. And when combined with yoga, it actually gives a concrete solution to keep your cells healthy.
So, child's nutrition, how can a parent take care of that?
This child nutrition is a question that has been perennially on the minds of all parents. There is no one formula that is there for child nutrition. But the Bhagavad Gita at least talks about what Satvika Ahar is, Rajasika Ahar, and Tamasika Ahar is. So, any food that enhances the vitality, participation, energy level, and the overall well being of the child, that is called Satvika Ahar. And that is very important to give for the child. And that is a combination of food that is pleasant to taste, food that energizes the system, not put the child to sleep, food that is not heavy, food that is not extreme in certain tastes. That is Satvika Ahar. So, if that is focused upon, the child actually grows up to be very healthy.
So, nowadays kids ask for a lot of junk food. How can we manage this?
So, when we decode junk food in the Indic lens, you would see that you become more comfortable that way. For example, samosa, right? It is made of atta, it is made of potato, it's made of some peas you put in it and some masala you put in it. So, it's technically not a junk food that way. But when you eat it every day, you buy it from outside, which is probably highly processed, then it becomes a problem. So, one way of compensating for the junk food eating is to probably prepare something at home, the same things probably, but use materials that you are confident about and prepare them at home. The second thing is that introducing and developing the child's taste for healthy food right from the start. I know a lot of parents who have never introduced their child to, say, for example, processed food like biscuits or even these beverage drinks that we have, right? With the milk, we mix it, right? So they've never introduced their child to those. And the child has developed, over a period of time, they've never had any craving for that as well. So it's all up to the parent how they actually train their child. So the best way to compensate is probably to prepare something at home so that the child is introduced to the what we call as the shadrasas. You have sweet, you have sour, you have salt, you have pungent, you have astringent, you have bitter taste. All that is also available, but something that you are confident about the material, because when you prepare at home, you know what is going into it. So one of the best ways is to avoid highly processed food. The second best way is to actually prepare something at home, right? So all these, so then you will see that actually it's not junk food. Even a chaat. What is pani puri? Again, it is atta and it is digestible material, which is basically the chaat masala. It helps you to digest food. But when it is taken out of context, every day you have it outside from a dhaba or something, then it becomes problematic. But when prepared at home occasionally, that's how my mother used to do. Like, I've had the benefit of having many of the charts and whatever it is. Even she would prepare a cake at home. Right, then I've never had a craving I need to have something from outside. It's just taken care of at home itself.
So nowadays kids are having their energies very low. Parents have a concern how to manage it.
So this low energy is basically an indication of the work to be done on the pranamaya kosha, right? The prana is the one which provides that vitality to all the organs and keeps the child energetic throughout the day. So some of the reasons why the prana goes away or becomes very weak is because lack of exposure to outside nature, right? Most of the time the child is indoors. So one of the best ways to enhance this prana quotient is to allow the child to spend as much time as possible outside, being in the sun, and also the ability for the child to touch the soil with bare foot. At least 20 minutes a day if the child spends, or 30 minutes a day if the child spends barefoot on soil, not on concrete but on sand or soil, it'll actually, and also at least 20-30 minutes in a day under the sun, say morning sun or mild evening sun, it'll actually transform the health of the child. It'll give a lot of energy to this child, because at the cellular level transformation happens when the child is exposed to the natural elements. The second reason why prana goes or depletes is also because of addiction to devices. Because you would have seen, you yourself experience this, when you look at the mobile phone and keep scrolling, then what happens is you don't breathe there. You're actually holding your breath. The moment you switch off the phone, that's when you rise and then you take a big breath there, right? You gasp for breath. So you are compensating for that lack of oxygen. So one of the key aspects is, now people ask us, like, I'm probably thinking that's your next question on device addiction, but I'm just answering it before you ask me. So the thing is that many parents are now concerned about how do they get the child not addicted to devices. So allowing them to play outside, allowing them to play in nature is the best way for them to forget, because children inherently want to play. So that time is being lost in the mobile phone or a device or whatever it is, right? So prana conservation happens when they have natural food, good quality nature exposure, and reduction in the device addiction process. Yeah. Yeah. So when the popular imagery of a Gurukula is that children will all like wear some saffron robe, sit under a tree, and then learn some ancient knowledge under a Dadi Rishi or something like that, right? But the way we approach it at Anadi Gurukulam is a confluence of ancient knowledge and modern systems. For example, children currently at the residential Gurukulam, they're actually learning how to code some of the Indian texts, like, say, Bharatiya Ganita, Indian astronomy, Khagola Shastra, taking some of those verses, converting them into pseudocode algorithm, and probably write some simple Python programs using that. And planetary positions using that, right? And we also talk to them about things like Ayuromics, which is a combination of Ayurveda and, say, the omics, which is very popular, which is a very cutting edge, science that and technology that's happening. And also bringing some of the Siddha into AI and Siddha. We have a lot of research going on at Anadi Foundation on AI and Siddha. So we really work on cutting edge technologies, and all the acharyas of the Gurukulam are actually exposed to these things, at the same time exposed to the knowledge in ancient knowledge systems. So inherently, the knowledge that we offer at the Gurukulam is transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary in nature. So if you ask, will the child be modern? They will be super modern in the sense that they would have a futuristic thought process. Will they be modern in the way they eat, way they dress, or whatever? If you ask, there will be some moderation in that. They will probably prefer more Indic way of dressing, Indic way of eating, right? That's something that is healthy. Now, so many people are moving to organic cotton, simple clothes, and all that, right? So there will be a refinement in their tastes that will happen, right? So they will go to things that are more sustainable in nature. that make more economic sense, that are more harmonious for the body and mind. So their choices will actually be refined. Modernity, of course, in terms of futuristic thought process. How do they advance science and technology with the knowledge that they have received? That will be their focus.
Will they be able to understand people and live a comfortable life in future?
The problem that is happening with the current educational process is that there is no input, that is explicit input, on how do you actually interact with people, how do you maintain good relationships. There is probably one organizational behavior paper that you study when you do MBA. But before that, nothing, no input on interpersonal relationship, no input on family relationship, no input on any other relationship for that matter. Or how do you even interact with the society? But what happens in a Gurukulam is that right from childhood, right from the preschool stage to the primary education to the secondary education, there is a lot of input from the Itihasa Purana, where there are a lot of stories told to the children on various scenarios of life and how other people have handled that. So that becomes a way for the child to learn, even Panchatantra for that matter. There's so much on relationship in Panchatantra. So when children are exposed to these stories, they vicariously learn how to interact with others. And how do they actually look at everybody with a harmonious vision, right? Now people are actually differentiating. This guy has more money than me. This guy has a better car than me, right? But then when you have a unified vision, then you are very comfortable with who you are. And with that comfort, when you interact with people, you actually create a harmonious relationship. So that way, I only see positivity, for the future when a child is exposed to Indic knowledge systems, because they will learn very core frameworks from our knowledge systems to handle the relationship challenges of the future.
How does IKS contribute to the development of interpersonal skills in a child?
So, as I told you, in the modern context, it is almost like you throw people into a well and expect them to swim out and come, right? So, a student completes education, there is no input on how do they actually handle professional life, how do they handle personal life. You look at the marriages around, they've become so complicated, right? Many young people I know, see, I've taught in a university, I've interacted with more than 1 lakh youth. Many people come to us with problematic relationship. We often joke that 3 skills are needed to keep your relationship going. So they think it's probably some philosophical lesson. So we say both of you need to know how to cook, both of you need to know how to wash vessels, both of you need to know how to wash clothes, then things get harmonious. Of course, this was pre-Swiggy and Zomato times, right? Now you just both need to have an app which can order food for both of you. But nevertheless, jokes apart, but you do see that there's so much complexity in the relationship, around us. So it means that even the basic idea about life has not been taught to them. But when children in the Gurukulam are exposed to stories from the Mahabharata, from the Ramayana, and Panchatantra, or even Arthashastra, they know how to conduct themselves in different scenarios, whether it is family or whether it's a leadership position that they're taking, whether it is a societal impact that they're creating. They know how to build meaningful relationship, long-standing relationships, and how to harmoniously gel and be with their family members. This is a very essential thing that they actually learn. And we have enough role models in Rama, right? Rama, the moment his father said, he immediately agreed. So those are the role models they actually grow up listening to about. So that way they will develop a lot of respect to their parents, which is a very crucial thing. Now many people are not talking terms with their own children, right? Like after teenage, there's no conversation that is happening. So, but when the child grows up in a Gurukulam, is exposed to Indic knowledge systems right from the preschool stage, they learn about life. They grow up to be a better child, better citizen of the society, better professional. And overall, first of all, that inner harmony is there because of which every outer relation becomes harmonious.
What is taught in Anadi Balagurukulam?
So, when you look at the subjects we teach, it's of course English, Sanskritam, Matrubhasha, Bharatiya Ganita, Indian astronomy, Khagola Shastra or Nakshatra Vidya as we call it. Of course, nature based education, sustainability, ecology. And we have a good amount of time that we spend on Indian knowledge systems. And yoga, of course, yoga is a part of the daily routine at the Bala Gurukulam or Indic preschool that we are starting. This entire content is, fitted into the framework of the Panchakosha. So there's something for the physical body, there's something for the energy of the child, so that the child remains energetic throughout the day. There's something for the mind and emotions, so that the child grows up to be a harmonious and happy child. And with robust intelligence, which is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And of course, the Anandamaya Kosha in terms of the happiness and aesthetics and spiritual interests as well. Simple, how you are able to connect to others, how you view everything as divine, and overall well being is ensured. So, that way, the curriculum has been designed in a very holistic manner. And the Indian knowledge system introduction is very crucial because the child learns about various things in their own context. For example, the fundamental elements, which is the Panchabhuta, which is air, water, or you can talk about Akasha, Vayu, then Agni, then Jala and Prithivi, the 5 elements, through various things around them itself. So that way, when they look at nature, when they look at an object, when they look at various dravyas, they'll be able to talk about the Panchabhuta. Simple principles of food and nutrition where they're able to decode their meal in terms of the 6 tastes, whether their whatever is, say, sweet in their food, bitter in their food, pungent, astringent, salty, sour, all that they'll be able to decode. And what is the impact of the food on their body? So when you eat spicy food, you feel that heat has increased, which is basically pitta is increasing. So the child will be able to talk about the impact of the food that on their own body and their own system, even if they're quite young. I know of children, there's one child who's growing up, one of our volunteers' child who's growing up at the ashram itself. He can clearly talk about the shadrasa and how the food has an impact on the body. So that way, children will be exposed to that. And also, say for example, Bharatiya Ganita, they'll be exposed to concepts like, say, Bhuta Sankhya. Right? Bhuta Sankhya is where through objects, they learn numbers. For example, eyes stand for 2 because you have 2 eyes. So that can be decoded. When you see the word eye, you decode it as the number 2. Or you see the moon, we have only one moon. So when moon indicates the number 1. Like that, there are so many objects in real life where you can map them to numbers. So that is something that the children will be learning. And simple things like phases of the moon, what is Amavasya, what is Paurnami, simple aspects of the Indian calendar, all this will be part of the curriculum that is offered at Anadi Bala Gurukulam, where the child develops to be holistic in all the 5 dimensions of which we talk about in the Panchakosha framework.
What is an IKS Kendra, and can you talk more about what Anadi IKS Kendra is about?
So we recently announced the Anadi IKS Kendra. IKS stands for, of course, Indian Knowledge Systems. So we had floated a self-paced course where more than 100 people had registered for the course and are currently going through that course on Indian knowledge systems. And many of these people expressed interest to take forward these knowledge systems to the young people around their locality, wherever they are. So we felt that the Anadi IKS Kendra will be a very unique Kendra, which operates mainly on weekends. Some of them operate on weekdays for the benefit of the children in that locality and community, where they will come and gain exposure to the Indian knowledge systems based on Anadi Foundation's recently published books on Indian knowledge systems. So children will gain knowledge on Ayurveda, on Indian mathematics, on the Indian calendrical system, and simple herbs and all those things, even preparing simple herbal medicines. And also learn a lot of chanting through these kendras. So the kendras will be facilitated by facilitators who have trained through the IKS self-paced course of Anadi Foundation. And now we have floated it in, announced it in cities like Chennai. We have 4 centers in Mumbai. Interestingly, we also have one center in Manipur upcoming. We have one in Vishakhapatnam and Tiruvannamalai, Coimbatore. And many more such kendras are coming as and when people are gaining confidence based on the self-paced course, people are expressing interest to open more and more centers. And these will start functioning from October 12th, 2024 onwards, Vijayadashami. And there is a curriculum in place. Children will also get access to our books. And through simple yet very engaging activities, they'll get exposed to these concepts without having any cognitive load, because it's a very new thing that they will be learning, but they'll never feel that they're learning. It won't be heavy on their intellectual process. It'll be very light, fun, activity based, and of course a lot of growth will happen through this. Yeah, the fee structure and everything is mentioned in the website, which is anadi.org/kendra.
So, Anadi Foundation has released a new book called The Panchakosha Pathway. Can you please talk more about it?
The Panchakosha Pathway book is a unique book because it brings together different frameworks from the Bharatiya Parampara as well as modern sciences. Inherently, it is based on the framework of the Panchakosha, which talks about the Annamaya, which is the physical dimension, Pranamaya, the vital dimension, Manomaya, which is the emotional dimension, Vijnanamaya, which is the cognitive dimension, and Anandamaya, which is the spiritual dimension. And this book decodes each of the kosha through the lens of the ancient sciences as well as the modern sciences, bringing insights from neuroscience, from psychology, from cognitive sciences, from modern medicine, anatomy, physiology, and all those things, so that the reader develops a holistic perspective of their own system. And at the end of each chapter, there are insights on personal reflections as well, understanding our own kosha, like Annamaya kosha. What is the quality of it? And what are the steps one can take to enhance the experience of this kosha? Like keeping your body simple and flexible, maintaining good relationships, developing a good memory, developing a good attention process and focus. And towards the end of the book, there is also a sadhana pathway laid out. So if somebody wants to go beyond the mundane aspects of life and take up the spiritual path in baby steps, even as a curious learner, there is something on the sadhana pathway as well mentioned in the Panchakosha book, so that if there is something for a curious learner, there is something for somebody who wants to become a serious sadhaka as well, and somebody who wants to understand themselves, enhance the experience of life, and also be able to apply this life in their daily life, also when they raise their children, or in their organization when they play a leadership role, when they work with employees, or even if they are creating social initiatives. This Panchakosha framework becomes very handy. So all these dimensions are actually covered in this book.
So my child doesn't respect elders. What can I do?
So when the child basically learns through observation. So the primary input comes from the parents. So the mutual respect that each they give to each other is what molds the thought process of the child. So first step is to, as a family, respecting each other, and that too an appropriate expression of that respect has to be given. The second thing is that this concept of respect giving can also be reinforced through stories, simple stories. Say, for example, how Arjuna had deep reverence and respect towards his guru. And how, say, in the Ramayana, there is the story of Shravana Kumara, who carried his parents on a doli, on a Tirtha Yatra. So that shows the respect and love that Shravana Kumara had on his parents. So these stories actually illustrate simple principles but can have a very profound impact on the mind of the child. One is through observation, where you yourself pay mutual respect within the family without speaking harsh words, not fighting in front of the child. All these actually make a huge difference. The second thing is introducing positive values and, positive stories, and inculcating values through those stories.
My child plays a lot of video games. What should I do about it?
The child is inherently not inclined to video games. As I told you, the child is divine, basically. At every house, there is a Bala Murugan or a Krishna that has been born, or a Radha that has been born, or there are so many role models, right? So that inherently a divine being has been born into the family. So they are not interested in playing video games. Actually, they don't even know the existence of video games. It is, again, most likely it is coming through observation, because parents themselves are hooked on to mobile phones for work or whatever professional reasons. I don't want to go into that. But if in front of the child, if that can be regulated, then the child grows up to not value the phone so much, or a device so much. The second thing is that because of lack of opportunities to play outside, there's no other way but to contain the child, inside. So giving more opportunities, or living in places where there is an opportunity for the child to play, is a very important thing. One thing is your aspiration. You have certain career aspirations. You live in a place where your aspirations are enhanced. But the moment you have a child, is it possible to actually reflect on your own aspirations and create a better environment for a child? Because mobile phone addiction or a gadget addiction is bad for a child. But then you also don't have a place to play. Then what will you do, right? So in fact, I was watching a funny, reel where the doctor has told that gadget should not be given to a child. So the two parents are actually dancing throughout the day in front of the child, right? It's just a funny video, but it can actually happen that way. If you don't have a place for the child to play, you are the one who is going to entertain the child throughout the day. So introduce the child to meaningful games. There are a lot of indic toys available. Introduce them. Allow them to play in the soil. Be outdoors. Like, for example, my elder son grew up in the university campus. Only for food, when he is hungry, he will actually come home. The remaining time, he is completely outside on the trees, playing with the soil, playing with his friends. So it's not that I raised my child, 50 years ago. Very much in these times, this decade, where mobile phones are all there, gadgets were there. Both of us, my husband and I, are both techies, so access to gadgets is proper access is there. But they never, were hooked on to gadgets, because there was a proper environment. And we left the software industry and then came to academia, because we wanted to give a good life for our child. We were very clear that we didn't want to have a child when we are in the software industry, because we know we'll be living in an apartment in an enclosed space where there's no scope for the child to play. So that way, these simple decisions, okay, I'm calling it simple. For many people, it can be complex. But these crucial decisions are what will matter in the life of a child, where you can reprioritize a bit in your life, your aspirations, but create a better environment for the child. That decision has to be taken by the parent. The time has come to take that decision.
Okay. So my child does not listen to me and cries and asks for what he wants. What should I do?
So there are a lot of children who are immediately obedient. There are a lot of children who may or may not listen to you immediately. One thing is not to get frustrated with this process, because it's the process of the child growing up. The child actually tests the boundaries. How much can it actually get its thing done in interacting with the parent, and what are the ways by which the child can get it done. The child himself or herself is testing that boundary. So normally when they ask, if you immediately give, or do you have to cry to give, do you have to throw a tantrum to give, all this, the child is actually testing the boundaries there. So all that I say is that don't get frustrated in this whole process. Show a lot of patience. And if there is something you feel it's okay to give, No harm in giving and then pacifying the child at that point in time. But in hindsight, I mean, not in hindsight, but at a later point in time, engage in activities that will illustrate this to the child. Of course, when the child is very young, you can't give too many intellectual inputs. Child can't basically understand. But then slowly also training the child not to get constantly attached or addicted to one particular thing. That can be done also by, say, for example, periodically withdrawing the child from that particular thing, right? So the child becomes comfortable with having that and also not having that for that matter. So we used to joke. We never had a TV at home, but when elders come, then they want to watch a TV. So we used to call downloading and uploading the TV. The TV used to be on the loft. So when elders come, it'll be downloaded. Our elder son will watch TV along with the elders. But when they leave, we put back the TV up and he will never miss the TV. So there are periods of engagement and there are periods of disengagement, and training the child to be comfortable with that actually helps. But at the same time, when you see that the child is very frustrated when you disengage, then you should not put the child in that situation. But slowly training them to be okay with not having that also. It should all be a very organic, harmonious, gentle process on the child. No use of force. Only patience can actually help. But what I've also seen is that spending good amount of time with the child, playing along with them, actually smoothens out many of these things. The main issue that is happening today is that parents are not able to spend enough time with the children, engaging in the world of the children. Say, for example, the child is, fond of, say, Lego toys or something like that. The parent does not have much clue or time to engage with that particular thing, right? But when the parent engages in the world of the child, then there is a lot of very strong bonding that forms. And because of which many of these tantrum issues get ironed out over a period of time.
My child doesn't score well in exams. What should I do about it?
When there is only one race that everybody is running, obviously there will be only one winner, right? Or two winners or three winners or whatever it is. That is how the education system has become. Everybody is going through the same curriculum and hence everybody is being fit into one pattern of educational outcome. But you would actually see that the child is probably talented in something else, right? So there is a book called Elements, right? And there the author describes the scenario where a parent comes with the child saying that, she's not studying good enough, not paying attention or whatever. So the doctor, what he does is that he puts the child in a room with the music player and the parent and the doctor goes out. They go out. And from the window, they observe the child. The child beautifully dances to that music. And then the parent for the first time realized that the child is actually a potential ballet dancer, and she turned out to be the most famous ballet dancer. I don't know her name, I've forgotten all that. But nevertheless, the parent was not able to recognize this because all that the parent mapped success to was getting good marks. So when we talk about Panchakosha, it means that there are different dimensions of growth in a child's life. And if the child is probably weak in mathematics, doesn't mean the child is not good in, say, music or some other art for that matter, or probably good in chanting or good in English. And now there are enough and more career opportunities to nurture the taste of different tastes and capabilities of all children. Now the education system has gone through a major transformation and there is opportunity for all kinds of learners. So the parents really need not worry that my child is not scoring good marks, because eventually the marks, what we call, will become irrelevant. Like if your child is very young now, it has 10 more years or 15 more years in the future. Many things are actually changing. Now online education is revolutionizing education. Now there are credit systems where you can learn under experts and that will be counted as credits. So you really don't need to go through this unidimensional education process. all kinds of talents will now soon be recognized in the future. So don't really worry the child is not good in a particular subject or not getting good marks. You have to see whether the child that is balanced with the child having good values. Is the child kind? Is the child empathetic? And give the child some support in terms of the subject. But if you see, even with a lot of input, the child is not able to score, probably you should focus on some other talent that the child has instead of pressurizing or force fitting the child into a system that the child is not able to cope up with. Because later on in their life, they'll actually face a lot of difficulties, self doubt. They'll grow up with very low self esteem, and the way they look at life will also be very different. They'll actually face a lot of stress in life. So, any negative input at the childhood stage should be avoided. So, if you notice the child is not getting good marks, but actually talented in some other way, nurture the talent. Just give time for the child to grow up.
So my child is depressed. What can I do?
First of all, you need to be a happy person. Then only your child will be a happy person. But one of the ways that I've seen to enhance the happiness of the child is by making the child interact with animals and plants. So if there is a Goshala nearby, definitely take your child. You'll see a remarkable difference. I've spoken to a parent who saw a major difference in the depression level of the child when they have consistently took the child to a Goshala. If you can have a Goshala at home, nothing like that. But I'm assuming it's an urban kid, so take the child to a Goshala.
My child is 12 years old, but he yet relies on me for everything. How can I encourage self-reliance?
So one of the ways is actually to put the child in environments where it demands a bit of self-reliance. So sending them on simple summer camps or sending them to a relative's place where they have to manage things on their own. And of course, welcome to Dharma Gurukulam, where a lot of self-reliance is taught. You're on your own completely. So that way, the child builds a lot of self-reliance skills and involve the child. You don't do everything on the child's behalf. Even if you're cooking, you just say, you please set the salt, tadka and everything, I'll come and cook. Then the child will actually learn to help you with all those things. It's all, everything is trainable and moldable in my opinion.
Okay. How can I guide my child into a spiritual path and let him excel in that particular field?
So when the moment we use the word spiritual, people imagine like big things, and they become scared. Like, will my child become spiritual, and not engage in regular life or whatever it is. But one of the ways of engaging in this process is to take the child to temple on appropriate occasions. Because a temple, of course, is a spiritually charged place, but there are so many things that also happen in the temple in terms of the utsavams. There are so many dimensions in a temple. And other thing is that celebrating festivals at home, whether it is Lakshmi Puja or whether it is Deepavali or any other simple vratas that we follow, when the child is involved in these festivals, they automatically develop an interest in the dharmic processes. And spiritual aspirations develop over a period of time. I mean, that should be left to the child to develop on their own. But larger, this Sanatana Dharma, the principles and concepts can be introduced by participating in festivals, in temple activities, even simple seva. Say, for example, you take them to a place where they can do some volunteering and seva. That actually builds a lot of, values in them.
So as a parent, how can I create an environment for a child in terms of Indic?
For the parent, the important aspect is to first create the inner environment within themselves. So when you are a harmonious parent who enjoys life, automatically you raise a child that enjoys life. So first work on yourself, right? That's why we have created this Panchakosha pathway book for the parent or the individual to work on themselves. And creating the right environment, ensure that the relationship with the family is harmonious, because that's the first step that a child goes through. Like when they observe you, you are a harmonious person, you are a person with good habits, you do things on time, you are organized, in your own way, right? And you are a very pleasant person to live with. These are the things that the child learns. And through this, over a period of time, the child develops their own frameworks and mental models of how they want to be in their life. So first of all, peace in the house is what is a fundamental thing that one has to work upon.
So my child is very aggressive and he does not listen to me, which actually stresses the parent out. How can we help them?
So this childhood aggression, one of the main ways to tackle is to give a lot of physical activity. That means that playing outside. So when I say physical activity, you don't need to actually spend lot of money putting the child into some organized sports. That is also helpful. I've seen lot of children who are very aggressive and they put into organized sports activity. There is a huge impact on the aggression. If you have access to that, good. But if you don't have money, you want to just do simple things. Just outdoor playing in the exposure to natural elements, and playing outdoors for an extended period of time, say at least 2 hours in the evening, completely left to play outside. This can really take care of childhood aggression. And then the play should also be a vigorous activity. It should not be you're sitting in one place and playing carom board or chess. It should be a vigorous physical activity, climbing, jumping, running around, expending a lot of energy, so that the child, when it comes back home, it just has a meal and just sleeps. So all this actually gives. And another way of tackling child aggression is also through simple appreciation of their growth. If they do something well, appreciate them. Many parents fail to appreciate their children, even if it's a small achievement. Today they did something simple, or creating opportunities for them to do something good, and then appreciating on them on that. All these actually take care of child aggression.
So how can I help my child become a better person who takes care of family and values?
Right from childhood, introducing them to value-based stories is the best method. I've seen time and again it works very well. As I told you, Panchatantra, then there are a lot of Niti-based stories. There are a lot of stories in the Ramayana, Mahabharata, Itihasa, Purana, the story of Ganesha, story of Murugan, story of Swami Vivekananda, and many more such stories. All these actually build these values, because through somebody else's life, they learn how to tackle situations. And over a period of time, they actually, when they intellectualize it, like when they start understanding the reasoning behind these stories, so it happens in layers. The same story in Ramayana, you can tell in different levels of details. For a preschool child, it's just a small story that you narrate with values. When you are in primary education, a little more detail is available. When you slightly grow up, you also give the reasoning behind those situations. And when you are in the youth stage, you also look at the background of why this whole thing happened, right? And a larger reasoning framework is given in terms of Niti and all that. So that way, the same story can actually illustrate a lot of life principles. Even if you keep coming back to the story, you'll keep learning new things out of that story. So that way, the stories are some of the powerful, story is a powerful tool to illustrate and inculcate values in the child. And another thing that I've seen is that the emotional concept, the emotional quotient is also enhanced, as I told you. Being with other species like plants, when you grow plants, you take care of them. So automatically that nurturing quality, that empathy, compassion, because you are in charge now of that plant. You have to ensure that the plant does not die and grow up well. So this actually later on reflects in how they will take care of their own parents, their own society, contribute to the well-being of others as well. So that becomes a very important thing. And simple things we do at home and at the ashram as well is with their own hands giving charity or dana. Right? Even if it is 5 rupees, 10 rupees, somebody comes asking for money, giving through the child's own hands, that actually brings the sense of giving. Because we have surplus, we need to share whatever we have. So with their own hands, when they do annadanam or give some money or dress or whatever it is, that actually builds there's a huge transformation, because there's a lot of studies now talking about altruism, the neuroscience behind altruism, how it impacts the brain, the hormones, the neurotransmitters and all that. The simple act of giving can have a huge transformation in the mind and life of the child.